I am the only daughter of Grand Tutor Zhao, whose disciples are found everywhere. Yet, I married a scholar who had nothing to his name. After 5 years of marriage, he actually had a change of heart for the sake of a mermaid. That mermaid was incredibly scheming. She scraped her palms bloody right in front of me. And then immediately threw herself into my husband's arms. Because of this, my husband gave me the cold shoulder for an entire half month. Half a month later, I took the initiative to yield and brought him a bowl of warming soup. He took a sip of the soup, his eyes narrowing with satisfaction. The taste is not bad, I will forgive you this once. In the future, you must never trouble Yuan again. I glanced at his empty bowl. I won't anymore, because I've already used her head to make this fish head soup for you. Shin Jinhan gasped sharply, his eyes turning bloodshot. He lay there, desperately clawing at his throat, vomiting uncontrollably. With tears and snot streaming down his face, he looked utterly pathetic. There wasn't a trace of his former noble, handsome scholar look left. I rested my chin on one hand, watching him quietly with great interest. Watching him feel a heartache as if his parents had died. Watching him slump to the ground, clutching his chest and wailing loudly. He was clutching the sachet at his waist tightly. His eyes filled with nothing but loathing and rage toward me. Still thinking of her? I slowly stood up and walked over to him. I pulled out that fishbone to show him, then suddenly reached out and snatched away the sachet that the mermaid had sewn with her own hands. I threw both the bone and the sachet into the brazier together. The flame surged up instantly, turning the last bit of sentiment in Shin Jinhan's eyes to ashes. He screamed at me like a madman. You venomous woman. I will definitely divorce you. I nonchalantly patted my skirt, stood up gracefully, and mocked his grieving expression. Dream on. In the Zhao family, we only have widows, never divorcees. I am the daughter of the Grand Tutor, whose students span the entire imperial court. I grew up as a steady companion to the princess, practiced martial arts alongside the princes, and was raised in the arms of the empress. I was peerlessly precious. With my father's friendship with the emperor, there would have been no issue even if I married the crown prince. But instead, I married the penniless scholar, Shin Jinhan. He was handsome and refined, with an exceptional appearance, full of talent, ranking first in the world. Most importantly, he was devoted to me. When the consort tried to force me, even using drugs, to compromise my virtue with the third prince, he risked execution to knock the prince unconscious, and rescued me, to destroy the Zhao family and weaken the crown prince. The consort made a false accusation, claiming I seduced the third prince and used drugs when I failed. It was Shin Jinhan who stepped forward, endured the brutal torture of the Ministry of Justice, and, covered in blood, helped clear my name. My father praised his sincere heart. Such a sincere heart. Father is very gratified. Yes, such a good son-in-law is truly rare to find. Moonlight shone on Shin Jinhan's wounded body, making his pale face very clear. I slowly asked him, "What do you want? I am but a commoner. I dare not ask for much. I only hope that my lady's wishes come true." His pale lips twitched slightly, his eyes glistening with tears, both unwilling and helpless. I understood it all. As I was leaving, I suddenly turned back, bumping right into his infatuated gaze. I didn't dodge it, and said directly, "When you pass the exams, come to my house and propose. The Zhao family will surely support you with all our might." His dim eyes instantly lit up with the light of hope. No matter how bright the moon was, it couldn't compare to the light in his eyes that night. Later, he indeed lived up to expectations, and became the top scholar. At the palace banquet, the consort publicly wanted the unruly ninth princess to marry him. I shall make the decision to marry the spirited ninth princess. Down to Shin Jinhan. My wine cup froze in midair. Across the bustling crowd of dancers, I stared, watching for his reaction. In almost a blink of an eye, he immediately stood up, in front of the entire court. He lifted his robes and knelt down straight. Right there, he finished the half-sentence I had left that night. My fiancé dislikes domestic jealousy and rivalry. I have made a solemn vow that in this lifetime, I will only love her alone and grow old together. Even if the princess were to be my concubine, I could never break my promise to my beloved. Your Majesty, I beg you to withdraw the order. Even as a concubine, he didn't want her. His words were so bold. It was practically trampling the faces of the consort and her son. But at the same time, he had placed his sincerity for me before everyone in the world. The Empress saw I remained silent and saw through my thoughts, so she spoke up to help him. Your Majesty, stop teasing him. My father was very satisfied with his backbone. He pulled out the betrothal letter Shin Jinhan had given, asking the emperor not to blame him. Shin Jinhan safely escaped the predicament. Afterward, he married me with great pomp, using a grand carriage and gifts to welcome me, making me the only legitimate wife of the top scholar's mansion. Married for 5 years, the bond between Shin Jinhan and me was deep. We respected each other like honored guests, envied by everyone who saw us. Even every time he returned from a business trip to the capital, his tradition of bringing me gifts never ceased. But just half a year ago, he went on a trip to Yangzhou and brought back a peach fairy hairpin from the Sanzi Lane antique shop. Its petals were like fine jade, not vulgar in the least, only elegant. Shin Jinhan handed it to me with a tender look. My lady is beyond graceful. This hairpin suits you best. Speaking of peach blossoms, the 10-mile sea of flowers in Jiangnan is truly beautiful. Pink petals dancing in the wind everywhere. It was truly stunning. He couldn't help but beam with joy, looking high-spirited, as if he were no longer the influential minister of the court, but that passionate young man riding through the streets years ago. This man was usually steady, rarely showing emotions on his face. In recent years, he feared appearing unsteady, weighing every word for fear of being scrutinized. Like now, constantly wearing joy and nostalgia on his face. It had never happened before. I was silent for a moment. As his fingers touched the hairpin, I quietly interrupted him about the hairpin. The peach fairy and the Zhuohua necklace are a pair. Where is that necklace now? Shin Jinhan froze. His hand, which had been descriptively gesturing, stopped awkwardly in midair. What did you say? I didn't miss the flash of panic in his eyes. Touching the bead on the peach fairy hairpin, I spoke coldly. The wife of the governor of Yangzhou spent a fortune to buy the whole set from the princess's shop. She personally handed it to you at the banquet that day. Shin Jinhan's face turned slightly pale. He didn't dare look me in the eye, and gave an evasive explanation. I also gave him precious tea in return. This is just normal social exchange in official circles. It doesn't count as bribery. Even if the princess found out, I could explain it clearly. I was asking about broken feelings, but he was talking about his grip on power. After only 5 years, we had grown so distant that we had nothing to say. I sneered and pressed him again. I am asking you, where exactly did that necklace go? Shin Jinhan fell silent. He couldn't say it. I said it for him, at the villa in the suburbs. On the slender neck of that beautiful girl. The Zhuohua necklace does indeed suit her well. I finally lowered my voice, stating every word clearly. But Shin Jinhan, Jiaosu never wants anyone's leftovers. The entire room fell into a deathly silence. Shin Jinhan kept his head lowered, constantly twisting the jade ring on his hand. This was his standard motion whenever he was thinking. He didn't feel afraid, much less guilty. He was thinking about how to handle the trouble and problem that was me. The wind outside was rustling, and petals fell across the courtyard like raindrops. That was the year Shin Jinhan and I first married. He planted it with his own hands. He said he hoped we would be of one heart and never be apart for a lifetime, but for some reason, that tree suddenly got infested with pests this spring. The blossoms that hadn't even fully opened dropped one after another until none were left. It turns out a person whose heart has completely changed is just like a pest-ridden tree. Like the leaves that turn more and more yellow and withered. And like Shin Jinhan's delayed returns home. After a long time, Shin Jinhan finally exhaled, walked slowly to my side, picked up the hairpin, and tried to put it in my hair. It's popular in the South to keep beautiful girls. I couldn't refuse the kind intentions of my colleagues, but rest assured, I won't give her a title. Nor will I allow her to show up in front of you. Hearing this, I snapped back to my senses. When I looked up at him, I suddenly turned my head away. The hairpin that was about to be tucked into my hair froze awkwardly at his fingertips. How do you plan to keep her, like a fish kept in a pond? Shin Jinhan felt guilty. He slammed the hairpin down onto the table. Staring at the mockery at the corner of my mouth, his face showed a look of great impatience. A jealous woman is truly unreasonable. He once said he would only love me in this life, which was his promise as a man. Now he was obsessed with lust, disregarded our bond to keep a mistress, and instead said I was too jealous. I gave a cold laugh. Sarcastically, I pushed that fine chain from the girl's neck, right under Shin Jinhan's nose. What a pity. Between life-threatening pain and future wealth, she chose wealth. She's a smart one. Your feelings are worth nothing at all. She was a beautiful girl caught by local fishermen. Sold several times. Only she knew how much grievance and pain she suffered. Only she knew. When she followed Shin Jinhan's boat into the capital, I had already received intelligence. While Shin Jinhan was in the palace reporting his work, my old maid had already gone to that villa. She cut the chain on the girl's neck and personally sent her back to the sea. The crown prince died suddenly, and my father also passed away. Our family is indeed not what it used to be. But the skills and mentalities taught in a noble household are not something a newcomer like him can step on. The mistakes made by a man should not be borne by a woman alone. Even for a girl who was forced by circumstances, I still gave her a way to live. Shin Jinhan's face turned green instantly upon hearing this. When he looked at me with cold eyes, the hand inside his sleeve was trembling. You drove her away? How dare you do this? I stood up and indifferently dropped a sentence. 3 days from now is our child's birthday. As a father, hurry up and prepare the gift. After all, the fact that I haven't dealt with you yet is only out of consideration for our past affection. I swept my long skirt and left. The spring breeze blew past, brushing over the green wheat fields on the ground. He is no longer the man he was. And I am no longer the woman I was. Jiaoer's birthday was held with great solemnity. The hall was full of guests, with constant laughter. Amidst the toasts and exchanges, the sound of musical instruments never stopped until on the pavilion over the Jiaoshi pond, the gauze curtains fluttered. Lights flickered. And a graceful figure in thin gauze slowly emerged. When she waved her sleeves to dance, she was like drifting clouds. When she spun, she was like falling plum blossoms. Her toes lightly touched the ground. Her posture was moving. Shin Jinhan's breath hitched. He stared intently at that figure. He didn't even notice wine spilling all over the floor. My face darkened, and I exchanged a look with Nanny who, seeing her frown, I knew that girl had secretly run back. Until that figure slowly turned around. Above the face obscured by the thin veil, a single white pearl on her forehead was revealed. Shin Jinhan's cup shattered on the ground. He was angry for that scantily clad girl. Feeling aggrieved and distressed for her, Nanny ground her teeth in rage. Our soft-hearted kindness was schemed against by a cunning woman. She played hard to get. She definitely has ill intentions. Before Nanny could deal with it, the fluttering curtains suddenly caught fire. The woman trapped in the pavilion looked panic-stricken. She slumped to the floor, trembling all over. Unable to stand up again, Shin Jinhan panicked. He pushed the child aside and, ignoring everything, rushed toward the pavilion. He threw himself into the fire and held that thinly clad woman tightly in his arms. I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, there was only coldness as I gave my men a look. I then led the large group of guests away. The courtyard servants were hidden in the back. While putting out the fire, Li Hui intentionally knocked over a pillar, smashing it hard toward the two of them. Shin Jinhan was startled, and after shielding the woman tightly in his arms, he raised his right arm to endure the impact of the burning pillar. Being too far away, I couldn't see the woman's triumphant expression. Only Shin Jinhan's burning sleeve. And the frantic shouts and curses from his mouth. He was lucky. Only burning one arm. I was unlucky. The once famous noble lady lost all face tonight, becoming the laughingstock of all the elites in the capital. Shin Jinhan sat with his arm wrapped in gauze, sitting upright in the main seat, his expression serious. She is just a mermaid that can be traded easily. There's no need for you to have such deep prejudice against her. I promise to protect her safety. Don't you ever make me feel caught in the middle. He looked at that pearl formed from a mermaid's tear, firmly believing that the fire was my deliberate scheme to tear them apart. He would rather believe in her sincerity than believe in my character. The image of my child's tear-reddened eyes flashed in my mind, along with my mother's worried face. Feeling exhausted, I pressed my forehead and asked in a cold voice, "Then what did the promises you once made to me count for?" Shin Jinhan slowly stood up. As he walked toward the door, he replied in a low voice, "In this life, you are destined to only give birth to a daughter." The hand pressing my brow suddenly froze. When I looked up again, there was no trace of him in the courtyard. His resolute figure disappeared at the doorway. Only then did I realize it wasn't that he had become a stranger, but that I had never truly understood him. Pretending to please, shifting attention, biting back, taking drastic measures, these few moves easily let 5 years of affection be destroyed in an instant. This mermaid, her methods are truly extraordinary. Nanny who, take me to meet this mermaid of great ability. The villa was filled with newly planted peach trees. The color of the soil was still fresh, clearly having been tilled just these past few days. All of this was to cater to Jiang Yuan's preferences. In that peach blossom forest, she danced an exquisite dance, and stole Shen Jinhan's soul. Those peach blossoms witnessed their affair, currently blooming brilliantly in the courtyard. Merfolk naturally love being in water. The entire landscaping of the courtyard had been torn down and transformed into a continuous stretch of clear pools. The mermaid was leaning by the pool, her slender arms resting on black jade stones, her skin glowing with an enchanting luster. Her curvaceous body was wrapped only in white cloth, the petals on her chest swaying with the ripples. Hearing footsteps approaching, the corners of her mouth curled up slightly, and her voice sounded sweet and coquettish. Shen Lang. Are you missing me again? I've already accompanied you 3 times today. Has that still not satisfied you? When she turned her head, that soul-stealing face suddenly became stiff. The servants waiting on her in the courtyard had all been held at knife point by my people. They knelt all over the ground, not daring to make a sound. Her face turned pale instantly, and she looked up to question me. You're that Madame Zhao who wanted to drive me out of the capital? You came to my door so quickly. It seems Shen Lang gave you quite a hard time just now, didn't he? I looked down at her from above, at her arrogant manner, and a cold smile appeared at the corners of my mouth. Precisely because of that, I specifically intended today to brew a fresh pot of fish head soup for him. Jiang Yuan's expression shifted upon hearing this, and her body flickered, instantly diving into the water and swimming several yards away. As long as she was in the water, it was her domain. She felt I could do nothing to her. So she provocatively tilted her chin. So what if you are from a noble family? So what if you've read many books? In that regard, ha 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 ha. You simply cannot please Shen Lang. I only had to put my arms around his neck and offer him a cup of wine, and he was completely captivated by me. After just one night, I let him know what true passion is. Go ahead and try to drive me away. Let's see in the end who truly cannot stay here any longer. She twisted wildly in the pool, in 1,000 poses, full of allure. I watched her arrogance coldly. You are a mere pastime. Once this novelty fades, what will you have left? Jiang Yuan's expression completely froze. She ground her teeth, her eyes full of overwhelming hatred, her words sharper than a blade. The fishy smell on the pill was something I left intentionally. He said you're too fussy. Others don't have this reaction when pregnant. Who told you to be so self-righteous? I didn't smell it. Yet even after so long, you still can't stand the fishy smell? Even when he was tainted by it, you made him spend the whole night in the cold study. Which influential man in the capital doesn't have mistresses? You used the promise he made in his time of trouble to force him to submit, making him the laughingstock and gossip of everyone. You were trampling on his dignity. But I am completely different. The dignity you despise, I carefully cherish. Now that the crown prince has fallen, and your father is long gone, why should he still have to look at your face? Jiao Su, let's just wait and see. His heart, his life, and even this entire mansion will all belong to me. She began to laugh hysterically, her massive fish tail whipping up a giant wave. She wanted to completely submerge me. That was what she wanted to give me. Extreme humiliation and embarrassment. But in an instant, her laughter came to an abrupt halt. Nanny's umbrella shielded me tightly. Not a single drop of dirty water touched my elegant gown. In contrast, the guards' ropes whistled through the air into the pool, churning the waves as they coiled toward her. Jiang Yuan was stunned, frozen in place. Her face was full of panic. Just as she tried to splash water for a sneak attack, the rope slammed heavily onto the bottom of the pool. The strong men on both sides gave a violent tug, coiling around her like chains. She couldn't dodge it at all. In just the blink of an eye, her tail was tightly bound by the rope. She wailed in pain as her flesh was torn open and she was forcibly dragged to the shore through the blood-stained water. The face that had just been so arrogant was now filled with nothing but agony. Turning pale and distorted with fear, she tried desperately to escape, but the rope tightened even more. There was mangled flesh and glaring blood everywhere. When she was thrown before me like a lump of mud, Nanny, who was seething with anger, grabbed her hair without a word and slapped her repeatedly amidst her screams, until her mouth was full of blood. What do you plan to do? If Shin Jinhan finds out, he will never forgive you. The nanny picked up a wooden ruler and slapped it across her mouth with a crack, beating all the nonsense I didn't want to hear into silence. Butler who sneered, "You tricked us and took madam's money, only to jump into the river from the boat heading south. I underestimated you. I should have ripped out your belly full of fish guts and fed them to the dogs." Butler who dragged her out of the pool, pulling her over the rough bluestone road, scraping the mermaid's fair skin until it was covered in blood. The frail beauty wailed incessantly from the pain. Only after half the courtyard stones were stained red did they throw her heavily before me. I took the teacup offered by a servant and glanced at her with a faint smile. Shin Jinhan loves fish head soup the most. This big fish head of hers. As soon as those words came out, the color drained completely from Jiang Yuan's swollen face. "How dare you!" The next second, a frantic shout of "Yuan Yuan" came from outside the gate. "Jinhan, save me!" Then, her gaze turned cold, enduring the intense pain of her mangled body. She lunged at me ferociously as she rushed forward. I suddenly exerted force and choked her. Amidst her dazed fear and disbelief, I lifted her up quickly and slammed her hard against the black tiles of the pool. Blood poured from her forehead, and she was on the verge of death. Shin Jinhan shouted in alarm. Just as he was about to explode in anger, a blade was pressed against his throat. I looked up at him, giving him a chilling warning. He suppressed his fury, and with a dark, brooding gaze, he said to me, "Jiao Su, don't cause trouble. The imperial concubine has given an order for Jiang Yuan to enter the palace and dance for the emperor's blessing. It doesn't matter if you've hurt her, but can the Zhao family bear the guilt of offending the imperial concubine and being cut off by the emperor? Zhao heir is still young, even if you don't consider the Zhao family. You can't just ignore his life and death." My peach blossom hairpin, which was supposed to be thrust into Jiang Yuan's throat right under Shin Jinhan's nose, stopped in my palm. A cold wind swept up the fluttering peach blossom petals, drawing a clear boundary between me and Shin Jinhan. We have finally ended up on opposite sides of the power struggle, using each other's weaknesses as leverage to win. I slowly bent down, while she was still trembling. I slowly pushed the hairpin into her black hair, the resentment and arrogance in her eyes. With a sudden thrust, the hairpin pierced her scalp. She tried to shrink back in pain, but I held her chin so she couldn't move. Blood flowed from her brow, staining those fish-like eyes that were staring at me. Strings of painful tears fell, mixing with the blood red, and turned into small pearls scattered all over the ground at my feet. I kicked them one by one to the guards. "Pearl powder is good for beauty. Take them back to make your wives happy." There were clearly not enough pearls on the ground to go around, so my hairpin dug a bit deeper into Jiang Yuan's head. She screamed in agony, and even larger pearls fell. On the day of my daughter's birthday, she shed so many tears of grievance. How can a mother not seek justice? Shin Jinhan's face was dark as thunder. His teeth clenched in fury, but he was also afraid that if I wasn't careful, my hairpin might accidentally pierce Jiang Yuan's skull. So he could only suppress himself and stand there helplessly, not until every servant in the courtyard and the butler had received a shiny, round pearl. Did I look down at Jiang Yuan's miserable and powerless state, and say with a cold sneer, "This big head, I've marked it. If you dare to make a fuss, I'll have it served up in soup." Jiang Yuan understood my threat. Her lips turned pale, and her eyes trembled slightly. She no longer dared to confront me. I cast her aside, wiped the blood off my hands, and turned to leave. As I passed by Shin Jinhan, I paused. Looking at him coldly, I said, "I can satisfy your selfish desires, but then, every benefit the Zhao family gave you must be taken back. I am no longer the person I used to be, and you are no longer who you were then." Shin Jinhan, the most important thing is to understand the situation. After the crown prince died, only the third prince, born of the imperial concubine, remained as a successor. He found a new master and switched sides, wanting to secure a bright future. and shamelessly trample on the heads of the crown prince's old supporters. From that day on, Shin Jinhan moved into an external residence. Everyone said that no matter how deep an old love was, it couldn't compare to a new face. Lord Shin's burning passion ultimately soaked away in the clear pool of that external residence. I went to a tea house for tea and ran into a few officials chatting in a private room just a wall away. They actually used me as a joke, just like a bunch of gossiping hags. In recent years, Shin Jinhan had been prosperous in his career, becoming extremely close to the imperial concubine and her son. He became a real court favorite and an aide to the prince. The political winds in the capital had shifted once again. Just as I was about to push open the door, I heard the door being kicked open violently, accompanied by an extremely familiar voice. I never realized that the civil officials of Great Yong were all such busybodies. Ha ha ha. In the main hall, you're all too scared to speak up for fear of angering the emperor, remaining silent as mice. But behind people's backs, gossiping about their business, you're certainly full of opinions. Even if the Zhao family has fallen, it's still a century-old clan. They were the emperor's pupils, and the pillars of my father and our Great Yong. What kind of trash are you? To point fingers at the Zhao family and my brother, the crown prince? I see you all have very glib tongues. How about I apply to the emperor on your behalf? To put you into a theatrical troupe to perform? You can have a grand old time. The men trembled in fear. Princess, have mercy. Please. The princess's voice was icy. Lord Zhao worried himself to death, planning for Great Yong's future until his last breath. In his whole life, he only had this one daughter, Zhao Han. Why, after the old man closed his eyes, do a bunch of scoundrels, worse than pigs and dogs, bully his daughter so viciously? Lord Yu was filled with shame. He fell to his knees with a thud. I was wrong. I have no face left. Get out. If I hear such foul words from your mouths again, I will definitely have your heads. Years ago, because of Shin Jinhan's public humiliation, the ninth princess, Xiaowani, and I had resented each other for many years. I really didn't expect that my rival, Xiaowani, would actually come to my aid. I pushed open the door, meeting her surprised expression and her sudden eye roll. I sincerely thanked her. Thank you for speaking up for me, princess. She rolled her eyes at me. Her face was full of pride. I am a person of chivalry and courage, and I enjoy helping others out of a sense of justice. Don't think I'm protecting you. Humph. I haven't forgotten the grievances I suffered. I nodded repeatedly, leaving her speechless. The pride she was trying so hard to maintain suddenly vanished. She deflated instantly. Her voice was dry. I am also just a woman. Of course, I understand that you have no choice. She was used as a tool by the imperial concubine, married into the duke's mansion to win over those veteran officials. The couple was estranged, and she lived a very stifling life. For the first time, I tried to be close to her and grabbed her hand. Her eyes panicked, and she hurriedly tried to pull her hand away, but I held it firmly. What are you doing? There are plenty of men out there. At worst, just treat it as if you're widowed and look again. I'll show you. Xiaowani's eyebrows twitched. She didn't dare to meet my gaze. You are too bold. It's they who don't know what's good for them. When I parted with Xiaowani, Shin Jinhan had been waiting on the street for a long time. He indifferently scanned Xiaowani's back. His expression showed great contempt. She can't even manage her own life. How can she help you? Ayue. Hand over the crown prince's military tally. The imperial concubine wants to incorporate the Longxiang army and won't take the lives of the crown prince's old followers. Ayue, this is our last resort. I looked up and glared at him, my mouth full of mockery. No, our last chance was burned away in that fire long ago. From now on, we go our separate ways. You and I are enemies. We're at a life and death crossroads. And you're still talking nonsense about feelings? Whether you believe it or not, Yuan will never be hurt. And sooner or later, I will become a high-ranking official. The glorious era that belonged to you and the Zhao family, ha ha ha, has long been over. Sooner or later, you'll realize how wrong you were. Before long, rumors spread that beastkin were born with celestial energy and could heal the sick and save lives. Nanny, whose face was full of worry. This is the rumor he spread. Shin Jinhan has completely become the imperial concubine's lapdog. He pretended to be drunk and talked nonsense, leaning against his colleagues, and showed everyone his perfectly healed arm. He said it was because of the beastkin that he was cured, and in just 10 short days the arm was completely fine. Everyone was gossiping. Beastkin are naturally born with celestial energy, and can heal the sick. Lord Shin's burnt arm was healed by a mermaid without leaving a single scar. We mortals. Who among us doesn't have some old aches and pains? If we could get a beastkin to help, it would be like having a miracle doctor by our side. Living a long life would be simple. At a banquet half a month later, Jiang Yuan performed an exquisite dance for the emperor. Her gaze was seductive and truly captivating. After the dance, the whole room was silent. While some were highly praising the mermaid's beautiful figure, they also mentioned her miracle-like healing effect. The emperor suffered from constant headaches, unable to sleep every night. The imperial concubine, on the pretext of relieving his worries, presented a fox woman. With every glance and gesture, that fox woman exuded seductive charm. She was provocative but not vulgar, glamorous but not bewitching. She was very beautiful. It was just a pity she had a large furry tail coming from her backside. Ignoring the empress's objections, the emperor happily accepted her. Naturally, it was seen as a great service. She was rewarded with silver. She walked up to me together with Shin Jinhan, mocking me for being out of favor and doomed to be neglected at home. She bit her lip and feigned a timid appearance, hiding behind Shin Jinhan. Shen Lang. Sister doesn't like me. I should stand further away. I've already wronged you by keeping you in an external residence. You've suffered enough. Why should you have to hide from her? He pulled the mermaid and walked away with large strides. I became the representative of jealous and narrow-minded women in the capital's inner courtyards. Shin Jinhan was just waiting for me to reach the point where no one would help me, so I would voluntarily give in. The mermaid thought I was at a dead end, unable to cause her any more trouble, so she came to show off in front of me. She was dressed in fine silks, with her head full of emerald jewelry. She was indeed beautiful and elegant. Looking at my plainness and quietness, she smiled until her eyes were crescents, saying very smugly, "You were a high-born young lady, but in the end, you still lost. A man's home and his power will eventually belong to us." I looked at her happy appearance and asked, "Is the era of beastkin dominance about to arrive?" Her breath hitched. "So what if it is? Even though you are human, your vision is extremely narrow. You are obsessed with love, heartless, selfish, and love killing indiscriminately. You simply aren't fit to hold power. Big fish eating small fish is the law of heaven. If you've lost, then you've lost." But I shook my head in disagreement. The one collaborating with villains is the imperial concubine. The ones making excessive demands are the men. If they lose, what does it have to do with us? Jiang Yuan laughed. She laughed out loud. "You wealthy ladies who never have to work a day." I sighed to myself. "So that's how you see us?" She continued. "The third prince says you have a keepsake from the crown prince. The imperial concubine wants to get that treasure, but she can't wait anymore. She only wants your life. Shin Jinhan is a waste of space after all. Terrified of being blamed for murdering his first wife, he keeps delaying it. As long as you are dead, it won't matter if the treasure exists or not, it will never appear again. When we beastkin march into the capital, your great Yone will be completely beyond saving." She pulled out the long blade at her waist. "Tell me, if I take your keepsake and shed tears in front of that fool Shin Jinhan, who do you think he will protect?" As soon as she finished speaking, she raised her blade and swung it at me, but at the same time, the flying dagger I threw cleanly slit her throat. She clutched at her gushing blood, still holding the blade high, her face full of disbelief. Her eyes were wide open, as she slowly went limp in shock. I looked down at this fat fish head. With a light laugh, I said, "Killing with a borrowed knife. You know how, but don't you think I do too? Since I knew your scheme, how could I not be prepared? I didn't take a single drop of the poison you gave me. Instead, I put quite a few goodies in your fish pool, which allowed me to strike first today and trap you." Jiang Yuan trembled a few times. After shedding 2 large pearls of resentment, she turned into a dead, fat fish. I wiped the blood off my hands. And I hadn't forgotten. I gestured and called Nanny Hong over. "Stew the fish head soup. I plan to deliver it to his lordship's study personally." Shin Jinhan would be no exception. Shin Jinhan thought I was following the example of the other wives in the city, and had finally bowed my head in defeat. He took a sip of the hot soup and said with a face full of mockery, "The taste is decent. If you had been like this earlier, considering we are husband and wife, why would we have reached such a point? Forget it. Since you know you were wrong, I will, for the sake of my father-in-law's help, forgive you this once. Just 2 conditions. First, give me the crown prince's treasure. Second, you are never to trouble Jiang Yuan again." I won't. Because I have already cut off her head and made this fish head soup for you. You poisonous woman. You mad woman. You are so vicious. How are you fit to be the lady of my ministry's manor? I am going to divorce you. Dream on. In my Zhao family, there is only widowhood, not divorce. You only deserve to fall by my hand. You have no regard for the law. And you have conspired against an important official of the court. Do you know what crime that is? I looked at him with pity, laughing at how pathetic he was. Court official? You are clearly a criminal of the court. Shin Jinhan was in the dungeon, stepped beneath my feet. This scumbag was no longer even worth mentioning. He was guarded by a matron, beaten by the guards every day until he was a bloody mess, forced to kneel on the ground, crawling on the floor to gnaw on endless pieces of tough, dried fish meat. He loved with such high profile and arrogance, so let him be bound to his true love forever. Dragging his crippled body, riddled with poison, he can reminisce about his love, regret his decisions, and grieve over everything he has lost.